The Sexist History of Biological Sex. Let's see. I'm assuming there's like a write up here. Book report, Sexual Science, The Victorian Construct of Womanhood by Dr. Cynthia Russert, Harvard Press, 1991. Please tag share. Oh, there's a bunch. Sorry, I'm not used to the browser-based stuff. Okay, so. Fuck off with the things that are popping up. Uh, Often people refuse to accept trans women as women by weaponizing the idea of biological sex. They argue that trans women are not women because they are incapable of giving birth like biological females. They conveniently forget how biological sex is a framework that was created by white male scientists in the 19th century specifically to justify discrimination against white women and black people, indigenous and people of color. Okay? Not seeing anything I disagree with there. I'd also say that the people who argue for the biological sex reality don't understand biological sex, and we as people have no way of assessing biological sex. If you meet someone who is, you know, passing or whatever word you want to use, you have no reason to dispute the fact that that is probably a person who is of the gender that they are presenting as. And that's because we can't sniff chromosomes. All right, next slide. Yale historian Dr. Russert argues that when white women organized for rights in the 19th century, European scientists responded with a detailed examination of the differences between men and women that justified their differing roles. That, I'm sure, is the case. For these scientists, issues of race and sex were one and the same. They focused specifically on white women because they thought that the lesser peoples of Asia and Africa were dispensable, whereas white women bore the future of the race. That sounds very honky, and I'm yeah. All right. After Darwin's theory of evolution, white male scientists doubled down on their efforts to deny white women an equal role in society, inserting white women and BIPOC people between themselves and apes in a fabricated racial evolutionary continuum. They argued that women were inherently different from men, different but equal, in their anatomy, physiology, temperament, and intellect, and that white women lagged behind men, much as primitive people lagged behind Europeans. In the civilizational hierarchy, German scientist Karl Voigt argued that white women's skulls resembled black people's skulls more than those of white men. While white men were seen as unique and distinct from one another, white women were seen as more generic and less specific. You know, they're kind of the same. Oh, shit. Scientists defined womanhood as the ability to reproduce, arguing that women's pelvises were proof of the promise of capable maternity, and describing women as naturally having less sexual desire, if any, than men. White women's fundamental essence was redefined as being a reproductive racial conduit. Canadian scientist Grant Allen argued that white women were the sex sacrificed for reproductive necessities. If white women deviated from this role as reproducing agents, they were pathologized as criminal, unsexed, ugly, and abnormal. Yep. I mean, I'm not seeing anything I can argue with here. The idea that what makes someone a woman is their ability to make a baby in their tummy is a pretty stupid argument as far as I'm concerned. Because there are women who are heterosexual and cisgendered who are incapable of reproduction, and if that's what makes a woman, then those are not women, and that seems stupid. All right. Social Darwinist Ebert Spencer argued that confining women at home and preventing them from working was the touchstone of high civilization. Oh man, to be a white male in like that time period where you can just be like, yes, women who I enjoy and appreciate. I think that the best thing we can do for them is keep them barricaded in a kitchen where they can make the foodstuffs for people like me because I have important work to do and it's how they love to help. Like, what the fuck? I see it. I've been passing as a WASP cisgender male for years, possibly doing a too good of a job of it, sigh. I feel that. Unlike indigenous and black communities where women worked, scientists believe that white women couldn't receive an education or work because they would lose vital energy that was reserved for reproduction. which is hilarious because I'm sure the same people would look at the sizes of families that were indigenous and black, and you know, people of color the world over, where family sizes were larger than the traditional European family size, and not think that the women had lost vital energy reserved for reproduction. This is all just confirmation bias. I want my woman to stay home. Let me justify that with some sciencing. Eli van der Wacker called this the penalty of sex, and Herbert Spencer called it the physical task which reproduction necessitates. European male scientists concluded that the primary role of white women was to mother, that she had no other gift to offer but her healthy and numerous offspring. Ladies, be like the fax machine. European scientists leveraged the rhetoric of biology to naturalize discrimination against women. This wasn't legitimate science based on reliable data. Instead, it was often discussed in their research as common knowledge. Everybody knows that women should be lesser, obviously. By defining women's whole being and purpose as reproductive, they were able to justify denying women's suffrage and women's mobility as a law of nature, not the result of political choices. Yes, it's what Jesus wanted, folks. Unfortunately, centuries later, people continue to use the rhetoric of science, not the reality of science, to justify discrimination against trans and intersex people. Totally agree. Also, racial realists use the science, the bad sciencing to dehumanize people of color. It's science is a tool, and sometimes you can have a tool in the hands of an idiot. It is not science to define womanhood solely by genitalia and reproduction. It's sexism. Womanhood is far more complex and expensive than the ability to give birth. Totally agree. So that's the book. Are we at the end of stuff? Oh yeah, there's image credits. There's a lot of it. Yeah, okay, so that's the end of that. Okay, let's mull that over a little bit. I'll tell you one of the most interesting books that I read. Let me see if it's in my Audible, I think, and I'll tell you the name of it. And I didn't read it; I listened to it. Women's Anatomy of Arousal by Sherry Winston, which is narrated by Sherry Winston. It literally is a book that talks about women's anatomy from a female gynecologist. And I read it as a dude because I was like, I need to understand women's bodies because I like touching them and I like exploring them when there's consent involved. And I'd like to understand a little bit better what the fuck I'm doing, It's not a terrible idea. And it was a really good read. I enjoyed it a whole bunch. And it talked a lot about like the lost knowledge of women's physiology and sexuality and all this stuff. That they have some books that have survived from before white doctors knew all the things. Books by midwives, books by women that were explained the various differences in how women's bodies work. And then we came along as white men and we're like, no. Pish tosh, young lady. You can't possibly understand the body. I am a doctor, and I understand these things a little better than your pretty little head. And a lot of information was lost. And that's why I actually chose that book to read, was because if I want to learn about a woman's physiology, I want to learn about it from a woman. And it was a really good book. First off, I want to say thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed, please like and subscribe. It really does help me out. Thank you to my patrons that support me on Patreon. I am a little streamer, and these people are all really awesome for supporting me. I try to put up stuff at least once a week, and I live stream every Saturday at noon Mountain Time on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, like an old man. Again, thanks for watching, and have a kick-ass day.